Welcome back to Once Upon a Crime. And since it is October, it's not only Filipino Heritage Month, but it's also the LGBTQ
History Month.
History Month.
Yay!
So, with that being said, we'll be talking about juveniles in juvenile detention, but they are also part of the LGBTQ plus community.
LGBTQ or queer youth in the criminal justice system. We're specifically focusing on juvenile justice facilities, homelessness, and illicit crimes.
Yeah.
Well, illicit crimes, of course. So we first started with the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is a nonprofit organization that focuses on LGBTQ. It's mental health. I think it started for suicide prevention, including housing instability. We read an article about housing instability. The Trevor Project focuses on mental health, but we see that LGBTQ youth who experience housing instability are prone to be involved in the CJ system, specifically because they would become impoverished. You know, they don't have a home, they don't have their family to support them.
And this type of crimes that they would do is just petty theft, which is probably some shoplifting, just food, and I don't know, like.
There was also sex work and illicit drugs.
Yes.
So drug enrollment and sex work. Like Dr. Reed said earlier today, you don't really need much to participate in sex work, which means that it's appealing. You can make a lot of money.
Yeah. But if you think about it, it's just a way for them to get money, a source of income, because at that point they've just been disregarded. Yeah. Because either the family were not accepting of them, or they just felt like nobody could support them in anything because they were part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah, and I remember that fear. Like before I came out to my family, I was like, I mean, what are they gonna do? You know?
Yeah.
I'm lucky, they were fine. It was all fine, but it was really awkward for a while.
I remember my friends who came out, they were very, very scared about how they were, because I think they came from a conservative family.
Yeah,
and
like me.
They're from the South.
Yeah.
So they are really, really scared, and then like they chopped off all their hair. They're like, okay, I want to see my parents' reaction when I chop off my hair first, and then I'm gonna come out a year later. It worked out fine. It worked out fine. It worked out great. They're happy, doing whatever they want to do.
That's awesome.
But
there's so much hesitancy in coming out. Like I remember when I came out to my mom, it was literally 2 a.m. Yeah, I know.
Why was it so early in the morning?
Well, it was actually late. We stayed up together. She is an online teacher.
Got it.
So she was teaching the China region, and it was 2 a.m, and I was just like, I have a girlfriend, bye, good night.
How old were you?
I was 15.
Oh, okay. You know, do you?
Yeah. We're focusing on queer youth. Coming out is a very hard experience, especially if you have an unsupportive family, and that unsupportive family can lead to housing instability, and that housing instability leads to poverty, and the poverty and unemployment leads to involvement in the criminal justice system.
And it's very sad to see, but it's just how it goes.
Yeah. It's
just sad to say, because if you have no support, no income, nobody there, you're gonna result into petty theft or just juvenile delinquency. Point blank, period. Yeah.
So one of the things that the Trevor Project notes, and this is a direct quote, strong anti-discrimination policies in the workplace and strong anti-bullying and harassment policies in schools can be effective in helping LGBTQ youth stay connected to school and employment, increasing their skills and future earnings. This is one part that can lessen their involvement in the criminal justice system. And the Trevor Project goes on to say, additionally, since family conflict around youth LGBTQ identities is a driving factor in LGBTQ homelessness, developing family counseling or mediation programs may be effective in decreasing conflict and keeping LGBTQ youth in their homes and connected to their families. And this is vital, absolutely vital to keeping children out of the criminal justice system, that support system will, it'll support you, obviously,
Yes.
and find positive and healthy ways to earn money or stay safe. Like a roof over your head is so important.
And I like it how they say developing a family, because they're going to be your true family because they accept you for who you are rather than hiding in the closet.
One thing that we see, a trend in the court system is for punitiveness to be more extreme for especially trans individuals, but people in the LGBTQ community. I think personally this has to do with visual deviance, like we were talking about. Our biases make us, value the norm, So if you see a trans individual, I don't know, people just get so uncomfortable, and then that makes them kind of unconsciously think, okay, let's be harsher,
Yeah. And then I think that works hand in hand in the business too, if you're going to work for businesses. Because I know in the military services, it was a big debate whether if people who are transitioning, if they should still be in the armed forces, but
I remember that.
they're not allowed to.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to. I remember one of my friends, she was a he before, and she was a male, going into the assignment male at birth, and she went to the Navy, but then they discovered oh, I don't want, this is not who I am, this is not my true identity. And they asked if they can if would it be possible if I transition, would I still be in? They said no. So after 2 or 3 years in the Navy, she was like, I'm out.
Yeah,
I need to find myself again. And I applauded.
Of course, But then you see this is where you can lose your job, because it's the discrimination that we're talking about. And without a source of income, people turn to crime. And same with support. Without support, you turn to crime.
But she's striving now. She's striving. She's doing something.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I was so proud.
Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit about juvenile justice facilities, juvenile detention centers. Specifically for LGBTQ youth, there was a study conducted surrounding LGBTQ incarcerated youth, and they were specifically restricted from oversight of the facilities. This means that, harassment and inappropriate conduct between the inmates can happen, and also inappropriate placement. This is specifically for trans and non-binary individuals, I believe. And then there was abuse of other youth, which plays into the little oversight in the facilities. Inadequate health care, that is really vital. I think
that's always vital.
Because it wasn't just physical health, it's mental health as well. And there is a lot of trauma specifically for the LGBTQ community and also for inmates. If we address that, we can see the recidivism rates drop, right? I haven't taken too many CJ classes. I feel like you would bring a better perspective.
So mostly what we talk about from other classes is mostly about gang affiliations. But that's, petty theft, but it depends on what type of group you're in for the criminal justice system, whether if you're in groups of very bad gang violence. So each juvenile delinquency gangs, they all have different ethnicities that you have to fall under, and each gang, according to your ethnicity, has a different structure. Asian structures are very, to a point, prominent. You don't even know that they're part of a gang. But when you go to other groups, they wear certain colors. Sometimes they do spray paint signals and stuff, signs. But I've never heard a lot about the LGBTQ rather than just petty theft, misdemeanors. That's not too bad. But we do see that there's a lot of people who's having a lot of mental health situations because they just don't know what to do anymore. We live in a world since the pandemic where mental health is on the rise because people usually just, they just throw it out the window.
Yeah,
As
like
we
there's distractions for them.
There's the drive-through. But people don't really realize that until we're all isolated.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I felt like isolation was also part of like how inmates felt when they're still stuck in that 9x3 cell.
Yeah.
And from that, I was thinking about how are juveniles treated? Because I know they're not in like jail, but they're still in juvenile detention centers, where I'm pretty sure it's a similar structure.
Yeah, and I think you found that nearly 60,000 underage youth are incarcerated each year, or is that like right now?
Just right now.
Right now.
And from that big number, 13 to 15% of the total detained population are part of the LGBTQ plus.
Wow.
Yes.
That's kind of a staggering amount.
That is a lot.
I know Dr. Reed said that they were overrepresented, but wow.
Sometimes the youth are involved of systems for violating laws for reasons unrelated to their sexual orientation, such as engaging in nonviolent survival acts like shoplifting and prostitution while homelessness. But the thing that I wanted to really touch up upon is the Prison Rape Elimination Act.
Yes.
And this goes to jails, prisons, and juvenile delinquencies, because this is an act that requires the federal, state, and local correctional facilities to maintain and enforce a zero-tolerance policy towards sexual assault for both inmates, on inmates, and staff on inmates misconduct. But get this was made in 2003. All 50 states did not adopt to this act until 2015.
Yeah.
So there's a 12-year gap of people not wanting to say anything, especially inmates and juveniles.
That's really interesting though, because that's the same gap between Lawrence versus Texas and Obergefell versus Hodges. I don't know if there's a connection there, but it is the same amount of time.
I feel like, again, things just got thrown away.
So we see a lot of misconduct in these detention centers, and it's very important to have these acts, except the states aren't taking it seriously, which is an issue in these in the criminal justice system in general.
Our system is broken, but we need to inform ourselves about these things to make it better.
Yeah, and I mean, you're a future lawyer.
Yes.
Come on. Know this stuff.
But yeah, it's very hard because, as you know, laws can change over time.
Yes.
Supreme Court can.
An interpretation.
Have different interpretations, and the Supreme Court can also overturn rulings on major cases, as like we saw earlier this year.
Yeah, with Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
Specifically, it was it due process? Due process is tied to privacy, I believe.
I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Yeah, so that is why we can see people worry that LGBTQ, not criminal justice, LGBTQ Supreme Court rulings will be brought up again, which is scary. It's scary.
It's scary, but you know, everybody has a fair right to trial, but it's not speedy because you're backed up.
Yes.
But if you appeal it, that's longer too, but we don't talk about that. We only want to see if we can stick to the cause due to our amendments and constitutionals that we obtained throughout the years. So
to sum up, I look forward to the day that I can just, live normally with a wife, and hopefully no Supreme Court ruling or interpretation changes that.
But I'm just here trying to strive
as
a lawyer, but still trying to get my career together in the military services, because that's what I really want to do. But that's it for our podcast. Welcome to podcast number 7, LGBTQ youth in the criminal justice system. Then again, this is Iolani and Bethany signing out. But join us again for our next week's segment.
And thanks again to Dr. Reed. Always thank Dr. Reed. Our most loyal supporter, number 1 subscriber.
Thanks.